Hi, my name is Michael Stephen Daigle. I'm a member of the Greater Lehigh Valley Writers Group, and we're here to welcome all of you to the Eastern Book Festival. And we want to thank the Sigler Museum, Lafayette College, and all the sponsors for getting behind this fourth annual event. And today we have Cindy Williams Newsome, who's the author of Hobbstown, The Forgotten Legacy of Unique African American Community, and Chasing Baseball for Life and Other Adventures, which is reading from the back. Fueled by Major League Baseball ambitions, Nearo Bub Willliams lived his young life in pursuit of that dangling possibility, driven by the love for the game, MLB entry as a pitcher, and his #1 objective. And so Cindy will now talk about her books. Thank you for coming.
Hey, Cindy. Wait, should we sing it?
Oh.
Take me out to the ball game. Take me out
to the crowd. Buy me some
peanuts
peanuts and
Cracker Jacks.
If we
Ever come. Yeah, you got more remember than me, and I cover sports.
Thank you all for coming. Thank you all for staying. I'm happy to be here with you today. We had some computer glitches, so I'm not going to actually give my presentation there, but Colin is going to ask me some questions. But before that, I want to just give you a little bit of background about me. I grew up along with my family in Bridgewater Township, New Jersey, with my 9 siblings, mom and dad. And this book, Hobbstown, is about where I grew up, Hobbstown, and it's called The Forgotten Legacy of a Unique African American Community. I won an award for this book from the Cultural and Historical Society of Somerset County back in 2006. It is the first and only African American community in what is basically an all-white area of Bridgewater Township. And it was founded by the Hobbs brothers during the Great Migration. Now my brother, Nearo, this book, Chasing Baseball for Life, is dedicated to him. He loved baseball. That was the thing that fueled him, the life lessons from baseball. And he was a mentor, he was an encourager, he was a community activist. And at the Hobbstown Centennial, which took place this year in August, he was, not this year, last year in 21, he was honored for his community service and mentorship. And if you step outside at my table, you'll be able to see the award which was given to him. And I also have 2 award-winning, for this book, I just received this week another award from the Cultural and Heritage Society.
All right.
So I am a 2-time award winner.
Yeah,
Just wanted to give you a little bit of background before Colin starts to ask me
1,000,001 questions.
these questions. Thank you.
Well, Cindy, first I have to say, when Andy gave me your name, Cindy Williams, I thought of Laverne and Shirley, the actress on there. I said, oh, Andy, wow, I'm talking to Cindy Williams, the actress, or whatever. But it's an honor for me to be talking to you about baseball, because I live and breathe baseball, and my wife, Barbara, out there will tell you that, and I cover it with sports, with radio, and covered it in the city as well. And when I came out of my mom's womb, she had me as a Yankees fan, so that's why I'm wearing my Yankees hat today. My aunt was a Mets fan, so I like the Mets too, don't get me wrong. But anyway, it marvels me how you started this book with your brother, Nearo, who was nicknamed
Bug,
and played for the semi-pro league?
Played for semi-pro, the Somerville Raiders. They're a town. The Somerville is, Somerville and Bridgewater, they're like bedroom communities right next to each other like that. So, if you were on one side of North Bridge Street, you were in Somerville. The other side was Bridgewater. So it was kind of like that. So they formed this team. It was an all-black Negro League at that time.
Yeah, which is very controversial at that time.
Yes,
So
yes.
that was kind of like the time around Jackie Robinson.
Well, it was after that.
After
Jackie
that?
Robinson was one of his heroes, of course.
Oh, I bet. I
Yeah.
still will 42
So,
for him.
yeah,
And,
42.
yeah, him and Mariano Rivera, if anybody knows the Yankees. 42, I wear that in softball when I play softball. But, so you and your brother just decided one day to start writing a book about
He
baseball.
He decided, yes.
You knew nothing about baseball.
I didn't know, well, you know, I grew up with 4 brothers, so I
Oh,
did know a
boy.
little bit. And then my older sisters, I'm the 7th of 10. Yeah, so I had 2 younger sisters. So my older sisters, they did have a little girls softball team as we were
Oh.
growing up, but they were older than us, so I never really played. But I certainly knew, because my dad and my brother, Nearo, they were big Dodgers fans.
Oh,
And they just, Brooklyn Dodgers, yeah, them
Okay.
buns. And they just really, you know, Friday nights, whenever a game was coming on, it was like we'd all be around the TV. And, you know, yeah, so I know quite a bit about baseball.
I prefer coaching girls softball than co-ed. I've done both, because the girls never give up at the end. Even if you're like 12 runs behind, the girls will never give up. But the guys will say, Colin, when are we going to the bar to drink some Blue Moon beer? And I'm like, no, we got to go. The girls keep going, we can do this, we can do this. And it's true, they never give up.
So the girls, they got that life lesson very well.
They do, they do. So so you started the book, and then your brother passed away. And you waited a while, which I see why you did, and then you just decided one day, like, you wanted to go back and finish this thing and dedicate it to him. And that inspires me. I don't know if it inspires all of you in there. That deserves some applause, because as a writer, that is the hardest thing to do. After 2 years, right,
Yeah.
and you're working with somebody, to go back and try to, you know, finish something like that is hard. It's bad enough writing children's book, which I do, it is hard to do also, writing condensed stuff and everything.
Yes,
But
you're absolutely
But
right.
you went back
And what happened was,
How did you
I'll go
feel?
back a little bit, because my brother, he was living in Georgia at the time. He had
Okay.
his own business in Georgia. He was, you know, he was a builder. And so he came home for his 60th birthday. That was in 2005. And he was telling me about his book, and he was showing me what he had written so far. And, you know, there were several chapters, and then he had an outline of other things that he was going to put into this book.
Right.
And so we were planning to, you know, talk on the phone and do all of that. Then my brother got sick, but we didn't know that he was sick. He did not tell us what was going on. So then he passed away in 2008. Prior to that, during the 2005 to 2008, he had been going through some things, the medical issues, plus his business. He had guys that worked with him, and so, you know, it didn't happen while he was living to the completion. And so afterwards, I was busy with my own, you know, I was writing another book at the time, which is
Right.
out on the table, called The Vain Girl.
Okay.
And yeah, and so I said, okay, after a while, it just kept coming to me. Okay, you know how passionate he was about having that book done and all of that. So it just kept bothering me. So I said, okay, that will be my next project.
It's like hitting
So
you in the head.
yeah, it just,
know.
you know, every time I would do something,
Better
I
than a
kept,
baseball hitting you in the head.
that's right. And I would always see something about baseball, and it was like he was talking to me or whatever, you know.
Right.
So then I decided to just pick up the mantle and go forward with it. And so
Wow.
that's what I did. So I had, in doing that, I had to interview, you know, see in the book, I interviewed like 10 other people. One was he was actually a Major League Baseball player from our area. He grew up in Somerville. And his
Did
name
you know
was,
Nearo too as
yes,
well?
he did.
Oh,
He
wow.
played with him sometimes on the, he would come out to Hobbstown and play with them. And he would come out, but I interviewed him. Unfortunately, he passed away last year before I could get the book done. and his name was Freddie Wentz. You know, anybody can look him up on Google or whatever.
Yeah.
But he played with the Phillies. And yeah, he played with the Phillies.
Go
And
Phillies.
Yeah.
They're heading for the World Series.
Yes, and he was a pitcher, and they called him Fireball Fred Wentz.
I love it.
Yeah.
They had nicknames back then.
They-
They don't have that anymore.
I
You
know,
it's
not like they did
baseball.
back then. And so so that's one of the things. And I interviewed quite a few people. I interviewed people from the area, you know, from the region that kind of knew of the Somerville Raiders and what they had done, what they had accomplished.
Now, are there parts in the book, when we're reading the book, that we know that you and your brother wrote together? Is there a section or not?
Well, I took what he had and I put it, some of it you will probably realize that came from him.
Okay.
And then other parts are solely what I knew of my brother's feelings, you know, so it's written in third person. So you'll gather from that, I think, you know, the parts that would be from his heart and the parts that would be from mine, maybe from both of us.
So like a lot of it, like you didn't actually have written down, but a lot of it you just like, you might would say you were like in a spiritual zone with your brother, like in tune with him.
I would
Like
say
the-
in tune with him, because, you know, me and my brother were very, very close. I knew
Yeah.
some of the things that he loved. He knew a lot of things that I loved. And he also knew that I loved to write. And so that's why he came to me. It was like he trusted me.
Oh,
you know?
that's
so,
great.
yeah.
Yeah. But he said something to you that made me laugh when you told me on the phone that he was inspired and he always wanted to do, after baseball, he wanted to be an announcer.
Yes.
And he loved Howard Cosell.
Yes.
How about that?
Yes.
Howard Cosell.
Oh, you're good. You're
yeah,
good.
that's the nasal Howard. So, Muhammad Ali.
Yes.
Are you going to win this fight? Yeah, you know, they went back. They bantered back and forth a lot.
I'm the greatest,
Whatever.
right?
The greatest,
Muhammad Ali.
Well, that's a great thing. Now, do you have other siblings in the family as well?
Yes, I do. As a matter of fact, my one brother was with me the other night when I got the award. He's a Vietnam combat vet. There's 3 siblings so far that have passed away. So there's 7 of us. Some are on the West Coast. I have some in South. And then we have some who are in the North.
That's
So,
great.
yeah.
So this has been a learning experience for you.
It
Right.
has.
I
I
mean,
had
you
to
know
do
a
a
lot
lot of
about baseball,
research. Yeah,
right?
I had to do a lot of research though, because I wanted to make sure that I was correct in what I was.
Okay, what's a
yeah.
squeeze play?
A squeeze play?
Yeah.
Okay, that's when somebody is on first and they're trying to get to second, or they're on second, they're trying to get to third, and they're throwing the ball back and forth, and so they, you know.
Well, that's
you're
kind of a
gonna-
tag. You're close. But the squeeze play is like from third base to home. You
Oh,
lay down the button, the guy from third tries to score,
all right.
score at home. Am I right about that? Can anybody out here? I got that right. I got that right? Okay, I just want to
gotta
make
go
sure.
back.
You know, we
I
got
have to go
baseball
back to
fans
my-
out here.
yeah.
Yeah.
I have to go back and Google.
So now you're ready to do a football book, right? And a basketball book?
No, not at all. But I did want to say, when you were talking about how my brother wanted to be a sportscaster,
Right.
he absolutely wanted, that was he had everything all set out, like he was gonna play Major League Baseball, then he was going to be a sportscaster, and, you know, his love of jazz was the one thing that, you know.
Oh, nice.
So he did become a radio disc jockey at a jazz
Okay.
station in Georgia. But even before I get to that part, I wanted to tell you, you know, how he would imitate, as you did, Howard Cosell. We would all be at the table, or,
I
you know,
thought you
we'd
were
be
going to say
watching.
was imitating Gladys Knight in that midnight train to Georgia. That's okay. That's another story. All right,
But-
anyway.
But he would always have the phone. Him and we call him our 5th brother, our first cousin. and his name was Chet. He played with the Raiders also, and he was what's called the 5-tool player of baseball. Anyway, those two would imitate the folks from The Godfather, Don Corleone.
Oh.
Yeah, one of the brothers, Sonny.
Yeah,
You know, they
Marlon Brando here.
right,
Yeah,
right, and they would
right.
have the family cracking up.
Marlon Brando never knew his lines. He never rehearsed.
Really?
No, never did. And he would pick up things as he was looking around, you know, and he would go, Sonny, this is what we got. And the lines would be written down on a piece of paper or under a bottle. He'd pick that. Watch the movie.
Oh.
Under an ashtray, right underneath the telephone. Or he'd pick up the telephone, look at the receiver. The lines would be there. Yeah, he was terrible at memorizing the lines. Terrible at rehearsal.
Wow.
But he was Marlon Brando.
He was Marlon Brando.
Didn't
Yeah.
matter like that.
It worked. It worked, because I would have never.
What was, I mean, obviously we know what inspired you to write this book,
Yes.
but what were the most difficult moments when you were writing this book?
Okay.
Don't say writer's block either.
No, no,
people
no.
always tell me,
I
you get
know.
writer's block? No, it's not
Yeah.
writer's block, it's called procrastination or something
Yeah.
like that.
I know, I've heard people
Yeah.
say that's just being lazy or whatever,
Yeah,
but
but-
yeah, but it does happen. But anyway, for me, the most difficult part, I think, was when I wanted to really ask him a question if he thought that I should put my brother, I'm saying.
And now you're gonna make me
Yeah.
cry. Boy.
If
Okay.
he thought that I should put something in there, and whenever I did, if I didn't feel a certain kind of way, and I was like, okay, I know your answer, it's no. Or if I felt like a little joy or whatever, then it would be like, okay,
So you were
can
in
use
tune
that.
with it.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah,
and that's a great thing.
yeah.
You know.
So that was like a difficult part, because I'd be wanting to put something in or whatever. I'd say, oh, I think and I would run this by, a person that I did trust, and they would be like, I don't know,
And it's
It
thank
was
God
almost like they were agreeing with my brother.
and it's thank God you have a great, God's given you a great memory. I mean, that's the
Thank
best thing about
God.
writing. I get up every
Yeah.
day. I remember things when I was like 8, 10 years old.
Isn't it?
And I have
sad?
dreams at night, like on my grandmother's restaurant business and motel and stuff like that. And it's great that, that there is some kind of spiritual communication that goes on there.
It's amazing,
Yeah, yeah.
and it's something that you say that, because I can remember things. I can remember when I was 2 years old. Believe it or not, I can remember when I was 2 years old, because when my dad moved to Hobbstown, moved us from Florida, where I was born, Panama City, to Hobbstown, we lived in, it was like a transition house for people that were new to Hobbstown, and not having much money or whatever, just trying to get started. So there was a transition. It was actually a garage, and I can remember living there. And then about a year later, my dad, my uncle who lived in the same town, 2 uncles actually, they built a house for us right up the street, because my dad was a builder also.
Right.
And they
Which
built.
wasn't Nazareth where you live now.
No, this was in Hobbstown,
Hobbstown.
Bridgewater, New Jersey. And they built a house, and I can remember when we moved in, and I was like 3.5, and that's where my younger baby sister was born. And I just remember it just like yesterday or something, But don't ask me about anything like that happened last week.
Right, yeah, exactly. or when my wife tells me, why did you forget to move that thing that I asked you to move? Oh, what thing? Oh, what?
Yeah,
Where?
yeah.
Oh, I don't remember that.
I know.
Whatever. But did you know my grandmother used to make meatballs a certain way? No, never mind. All right, but the thing of what has happened to the sports world now? Like this is a perfect book for everybody to read. And I read a great book called Chasing a Dream. Joe Torre wrote about him growing up and hanging out with Tony Orlando, and he was always fat, and his mom always fed him a lot of food and stuff like that. It was a great book. But baseball now, today, and we comment on this on the station, and even when we're broadcasting high school games, and we'll say, it's all about analytics now. everything's about analytics. Like coaches and managers, all right, are always saying, okay, a left-hander's coming up, so I need to take out the right-handed pitcher now and get the left-hander pitcher in, or his stats match that stats, and it's all, and it's made the game very messy now.
Yeah.
It's no spirit to it. And you know what, folks? 90% of the time they're wrong because they take it out, they take the person out, and it's really wrong. Should have left them in anyhow in the beginning, and he would have done better.
Yeah.
Sometimes they're right, but it's all about analytics.
It is.
And you've captured the best part of baseball when they didn't have all that. The player played, and that was it.
It was
whether
all
the player
on
was
capability. You had it or you didn't. And like I point out in the book, they didn't have like the batter booths and all that stuff where you could just go in and hit. They didn't
batting
have
cages.
the batting cages. They didn't have that. It was just ability. And my brother used to talk about that as well.
Play catch.
Go
in the backyard.
Well, he was.
Catch.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
He was. He would train like with his arm because he was a pitcher. And he would train, he would, do all these exercises and everything. But I just remember him even with Pony League, how he would lay out his uniform at night. He would make sure everything was there, shoes were clean, all of that, his cleats.
Oh, wow.
And
that little anal.
He was just so excited, to be the next day. To be playing.
Was he superstitious maybe a little bit too? Because there are tennis players that way too, like Rafa Nadal. He has to have his bottles lined up a certain way or he's going to feel like he's going to lose. Those bottles fall down or something like that. They have all the little kind of, what do you call that? Obsessive compulsion. Compulsion, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know, but he always just had to have, things had to be out. For that next day, or I don't know if he felt like if he didn't, he was going to be late or whatever, because the coach always stressed timeliness, cleanliness, making sure your uniform was clean, your cleats were clean and all of that, not having dirt in them from the last game or whatever, or the last practice.
I would love to ask you this. It's not a final question, but. Do you feel like you got closure on this with your brother?
Yeah, closure.
Do you think he's smiling somewhere?
I believe that, and I even said that last. It was on what night was it this week? It was on Wednesday night that I was awarded. It was a ceremony with the Cultural Association and Commission in Somerset County. And I even said when I accepted the award that I felt like although my brother would have been humbled by, this book being, awarded, he would have been humbled even that it was even published. I feel that, he would have had a lot of gratitude because he was just that kind of person. He was, full of humbleness. And so that night I said, my brother isn't here physically, but he always wanted his book to be out there for posterity, for a living legacy of some of the things that he had done to make life better for other people, his mentorship, his community activism. And I believe that even that night that he wasn't there physically, but I believe that God allowed him to be there spiritually. That's what I believe.
That's a great thing. I'm so proud of you.
Thank you.
And I'm honored because you're such an inspiration. I think, right? Everybody's just such an inspiration to all of us.
Thank you.
What's on the horizon now? I mean, people always ask me, it took me, this is no lie, children's book, hello, right? Okay, Mr. Sunnyside, it took me 35 years to write that book. It was in my head.
Isn't it?
Yeah, 35 years to write a children's book. So my wife's asking me, and my son's asking me, so Dad, when are you writing the second book? Well, 35. Well, I'll be 96, and I'll, when I write the second book, another 35 years. I really think it doesn't, inspiration. Everybody knows when you're a writer, inspiration is such a great thing to have.
It is. It truly is.
It's like craft is such
Yeah.
the hardest thing to do.
It's
So I'm
just
waiting
like
I
being
wait
an
for
artist.
sparks.
Mhm.
Yeah, I get sparks and I write first. I'm like George Clooney. I write down in pencil, or everything in pencil. Then I go to ink.
Okay.
Right, so we're getting close to the final
Yeah,
end. Then I go
yeah.
to ink.
No more erasures.
And then I go to my wife, who was a school teacher for
Okay.
years, and
Uh-huh.
I go to her because she knows how to edit.
Okay.
Okay, and I also have a friend and publisher I work with that's born on the same day as her. She's a great editor too,
Mhm.
for the irregular
Mhm.
Lydia.
Okay.
And my wife Barbara. So I go to that, and then I have her type it. I hate typing. I don't know why.
You do?
I love typing emails. I'll type the longest emails ever. I'll type and text her, but I just hate typing things like that. It takes away my creativity. I'll do it at the end,
Okay.
but I don't like
Gotcha.
typing while I'm writing.
You like longhand.
I like
yeah.
longhand.
Yeah, and I think with my
That
first book
happens.
with Hobbstown, I was more or less like that. It took me so long to write that book. It took me like 10 years.
Girl, don't feel so bad. Don't feel so bad. You got it done. That's
Yeah,
the main thing.
I
You
did.
feel so good. You got it
Yeah.
done. You know,
10 years,
Look,
so
it didn't take you 35 years to write that.
You know, the biggest part is that my books, they involve interviews with other people. And so you have to,
Yeah, that's
you have to
difficult.
wait for them and, you know, all of that. And, you know, then you have to go back to them and make sure that they agree with what you're
Mhm.
going to say. And yeah, you know, so it takes time.
Right.
But I'm happy with the way everything turned out. And thank you for saying that I'm an inspiration.
No, do you think you'll do another sports book?
I'm not sure about that. My little grandson,
You don't have to,
he's-
but
yeah, I know.
you know, but
He's a football fanatic and he plays football and, you know,
hey,
so you never know.
You never know.
You never
yeah.
know where he's gonna go with that.
Mhm.
But I don't have a sports book in mind right now. What I started working on is another inspirational book.
Those are usually
and-
the best. We need it for this time. This
I'm
period.
telling you.
The world is
We do.
chaotic. That's why I sat down and did mine for children,
Mm-hmm.
to give them inspiration, to give them some kind of hope through these
Right.
bad times that we're going through, the war, the pandemic, whatever.
Yes.
There's always something going on.
And that they will get through
Yeah,
it.
you'll get through it.
You know, because we got through a lot when
Yeah.
we were, you know, if you think back to all the years, everything that we've been through.
Right. We're still like 20. I'm 25 and you're like 22. So
Yes.
we got time
Yes,
to do it.
we got time.
Okay, so before we go for a station break and a commercial on more of the Easton Book Festival and the events coming up, woohoo, and everything, does anybody out there have any questions for Cindy Williams Newsome? I was like Cindy Williams, CWN.
Yes.
Yeah, CWN.
Yeah.
Any questions for her? Oh,
Yes.
okay, there's
How-
Lydia.
How
Okay.
did you choose the title? Was it something you had decided upon before your brother's passing, or did it have something to do with when you picked it up and decided to finish it?
Thank you for that question. And I chose the title because when I started putting everything together and my brother's life adventures and his love of the life lessons of baseball, that's how I chose the title, Chasing Baseball for Life, because it was, you know, it was like he was chasing his life, the things that he was going to do, but it always involved the baseball life lessons, even when he was mentoring to others and encouraging. Okay?
Good
Thank
question.
you for that question. Yeah, good question.
Good question. Anybody else? How about that newspaper man over there? You got that reporter instinct in you?
Yeah, one of the stories I did many years ago was about semi-pro industrial leagues in North Jersey. I wondered if your brother played in those kind of leagues in Somerset County.
Well, he played for the Montclair Garden State Baseball League at that time, and this
Right.
was back in the 60s
Yeah.
through the mid 50s, late 50s. into
Okay.
the end of the 60s. So
Yeah.
yeah, that was the league that he played for.
That's
The
about,
whole
that sounds
time.
like about what these were. There was,
Mhm.
they started during the Second World War, and
Okay.
every town sort of had one, but it
Yeah.
was also associated with a factory, a company that was the sponsor, and they played about a 60 or 70 game season, and teams were coming in from East Stroudsburg, coming up from Philadelphia.
Okay.
And it was just, it was guys who worked in the mill all day who played baseball at night.
And that was kind of what this was.
Yeah.
And they went all over New Jersey. They even had, they went into New York for some games like that.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a tremendous, the thing that was interesting talking to these guys is how supportive both the companies and the towns were for these teams, because the media saturation in 1948 was clearly not what it is now.
Right.
So you needed that kind of local entertainment.
Exactly.
And I'm sure that's what your Brothers League provided.
Oh, they had such a big following. And when you say that there was a company, you probably have heard of Ethicon.
Yeah.
It's one of the J&J companies. When they started Pony League,
Okay.
the sponsor was J&J company,
Sure,
Ethicon.
yeah.
And so then it just kind of went from there.
Were the league your brother played in all black teams, or were they mixed race?
It was all black.
Okay.
This one was all black.
Yeah.
And
That's
That was the Negro we would start.
yeah, well, they had the Negro leagues. Those were prior to my brother.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was a little bit younger than that. But he was very interested in it. That gave him motivation, the Negro leagues.
You find baseball for years was a segregated sport, and then you find it at the local level as well.
Right. Right.
Where the guy that you worked with couldn't play on the same team you
I
played
know,
with. It was
right?
Just,
Yeah, it was
the
something.
idiocy
Yeah.
of racism.
Right.
Yeah.
But now I think they're trying to correct that, because now the Negro leagues have been inducted into
Oh, yeah.
major leagues. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, it was a major guilt trip at the major league level. dealing with
That's
that.
true.
There's the
true.
magic word there, guilt.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what it was all about. I think. So where the analytics has destroyed the game, at least now diversity has replaced the game and made
Well,
it better.
that's true.
So
That is very
that's a
true.
big improvement right there. I
But-
have another question
Mhm.
for you. I haven't read the book, honest, but I am going to read the book definitely.
Thank you.
And one question I have is the achievements that your brother had. What did he express to you? His his greatest moment in baseball. What was his greatest moment in baseball? Whether it was throwing the guy out at second, hitting a home run, or just being involved in the sport itself. Did he ever express that to you?
What he, and you'll read about it in the book, was one of the greatest things that he really had to develop and overcome was getting a batter who was just a terrific batter, and in the younger days when he was playing like in Pony League and all of that, he would actually become nervous because everybody would start backing up and all, the outfield and all
Right,
that.
right.
And he said that he had to just overcome being intimidated by the big hitters, the 5-tool players that they could hit, they could run, they could catch, all of that. So he overcame it, but he said it did take him a long time to realize that they had no better judgment than he had. They could go out and make a mistake and
It's a flaw.
same thing. Yeah, we're all flawed. But
Right.
sometimes you look at other people, as he did some of these batters, and think like, oh, okay, he's going to hit my screwball, or
Right.
my
Knuckleball.
like that. Yeah, so he had to get over some of that. And he used to talk about
I can relate in that way, because I was a pitcher in softball as well as a catcher, but I was a pitcher more. So I would get the team we'd be playing against, the batter would get up, and all of a sudden, I'd be going like this to the outfield, and I'd be like waving them back, waving them back, waving them back, and then they were just totally frustrated, and then they would go back and back, and then of course the ending of the story, what would happen. He would hit the ball right in front of them, of course, because I pushed the outfield back too far, and everything like that. So so I can see that, the judgment thing going on.
Right.
And it's tough being a pitcher. You're in a vulnerable position too a lot. Don't let it fool you. Pitching is a gruesome pitcher. I got a detached retina from it. I nearly lost my right eye.
Really?
And it still gives me problems to this day. I always have problems with it. Everything. But I just thank God I didn't lose it. But and then I was always had to wear safety goggles. And you see some pitchers doing that now today, wearing safety goggles. But it's not easy to pitch with safety goggles, because you start breathing sometimes, and then your glasses start steaming up, and you can't see where you throw the ball. It's like, whoops, like that.
Well, I'll tell you, and he was very protective of other people that were playing as well. And the one thing, and I mentioned this in the book too, is that he talked about Ray Chapman, who was, I believe he might still be the first and only person. He was a shortstop, and I'm trying to remember the league that he played for.
He played for the Indians, and Herb Score.
Yes.
Ah, very good.
And he
Jack Logic.
he got hit by a ball, and he was the first person to die. We're talking, this was in like the 1920s,
Right,
and he got hit in the head.
Wow.
And he died. And so, my brother, he said that when I read that, because my brother was a student of the game. He studied baseball. From a young age, he wanted to know all the ins and outs of baseball. So he would study the great pitchers, he would study the great players, and Ray Chapman happened to be one. And when he read that, he was like, wow, he said, pitchers really have to be careful how they're throwing balls and everything. So the
way you deliver everything. But you talk about how he educated himself and watched other players and stuff. I had the great fortune of going to school, and my cousin going to school with Mike Tyson from Catskill, New York. That's where I'm from, upstate New York. And Mike Tyson, the town of Catskill has the biggest boxing archive in the world. And Mike Tyson would sit night after night, hour after hour, watching Rocky Graziano and watching all the greats in boxing. And that's how he developed the 2-minute knockout punch. He just studied it to perfection. Don King destroyed him after that, but that's besides the point, with money and everything. But he studied, and that's
what you have to do when you want to achieve that greatness.
So would you say, I was going to ask another question, but how your brother, how he felt about, what was the worst thing about the game of baseball? Would that been it, or something else?
I think the worst thing about it was that, because the scouts would come.
Right.
My first cousin, like I said, he was a very good player. My brother was a very good player, but you kind of knew that, and they knew that this one time that they could only pick one. They could only pick one black person, for this particular team or whatever. So when they would be out there and they would be playing, the scouts would come, so it's just very, very difficult to get that recognition of going, for a audition, and so that was frustrating for him, that it couldn't be more than one most of the time. And that was the rule.
Wow.
We can only pick one, and they were told that.
If you had to change anything in the book right now, would you go back and change anything? Or you're relatively happy with it?
I'm basically happy with it, yeah.
Okay.
Especially on the interviewing part, and I've gotten a lot of feedback from different people. Like the one guy who he gave me an interview. He played with my brother on the Somerville Raiders, and he read the book, and he texted me, and he was like, "Cindy," he said, "I couldn't stop reading the book." He said, "I could just see myself all over the place, you know."
Oh,
and his name is Gary Vanessa, yeah.
Okay.
He won't be angry that I mentioned his name, so, if he happens to see this.
Right.
Yeah, so that, I just don't think that, at this point, I don't think that I would have changed anything, that I would go back and change anything.
So hopefully this will become one of my third favorite Facebook, or maybe surpass two of mine, which was Chasing a Dream with Joe Torre and Open by Andre Agassi, which was a great book to read too, like that.
Okay.
I read this, and I'm sure it will. I can't wait to get my eyes into the book. I'm an avid reader.
Thank
I read
you.
a lot, and I love inspiration, and I love that you're doing. You want to give a sneak preview? Do you have a title? There's something that's coming in the second book. We know it's not going to be sports, folks. It's going to be something inspirational.
It's
so.
going to be about someone that is very, very inspirational to many, many people. And that's basically what I can say. We look to this person basically for everything.
I got to turn my hat around on that. Uh-oh. Wow. Get ready to catch that when it happens, okay, folks? Get ready. Well, Cindy, it was. I don't know if we have time restraints on this, Andy? Or we don't going to another commercial break? You missed the first one. Lynn will tell you about it. We promoted the Easton Book Festival more. Like everybody should be at it. Anything you want to tell anybody? Except pick up the book and read it, of course.
Like I said, I have several books. I have 3, and I think that if you read the Hobbstown book, this will give you more insight, because I talk about some of the, about the founding of Hobbstown in here, how we grew up, the inspirational neighborhood and all of that, was like the forerunner of chasing baseball for life and other adventures.
And how can people get in contact with you?
My information is out there, but yeah, my website.
You have a website, that's great.
Yeah, is on my card, and it's a Google website, so I can't remember how it goes. But my email, sensenews@gmail.com. I have several other ways that you can contact me, but my contact information is out there. So
little mini reviews always help too.
Yeah,
Like that.
that's
Definitely.
true.
They're hard to get, so.
So I'm trying to think if there's anything else that
You want to say it? Yeah, say it
I
now.
would like to
Or forever
say,
hold your
but
peace.
I think you will. I think you will enjoy it. It's not a scholarly kind of read. It's kind of a down-to-earth kind of read, and I think you will enjoy the interviews in here, as well as my brother's story, his memoir. It's like a coming-of-age story as well. So.
And actually, I'm going to have the honor of interviewing you in February or March. We're deciding, because high school baseball starts with the Easton Red Rovers, and everything. We'll start covering that, and we're going to be interviewing Cindy on the radio, either on Jack Logic's Saturday morning show, or we're going to do it right during the baseball game against Nazareth. How about that?
I'm looking
That might
forward
even be
to
the best, actually.
Whenever, yes, I'm looking forward to it. Thank you.
Yeah, Nazareth's hot. They're very hot in sports, I have to say.
Nazareth,
Yeah,
yes,
Nazareth
they
are
are.
hot.
Yeah,
They got it hot.
they're doing good with football as well.
Easton is terrible right now, but that's okay. We have the book festival. We have the Easton Book Festival. Yay! Yeah, keep it going. The city was great.
Thank you.
This is such a fun time.
I really appreciate it. I enjoyed it.
Yeah,
Thank
so
you.
did I. And I hope everybody else enjoyed it too.
Thank you very much.
Okay, and now everybody can go get something to eat.
Yes.
Cracker Jacks. Lynn? No?
And I
Yeah, sure, okay, all right,
And I
okay.
have my Cracker Jack box, which I usually bring with the Cracker Jacks in it.
Mhm.
And it has like these 4 other little round balls of chocolate with their baseballs, you know.
Oh, that's so cool.
My husband,
Yeah.
we forgot the box.
Oh!
Well, thank you very much.
Yeah,
I so
definitely.
appreciate it.